It used to be very busy in this street with the fruit warehouses and the lorries. They used to have a policeman permanently in this street directing the traffic because it used to be congested. And during the lunchtime, where we're going now is to the Iron Door, which used to be in this street, somewhere here. Maybe we'll find it. Oh yeah, here we are. Here's the plaque where this is where the Iron Door used to be. This is the Iron Door plaque. The cradle of MerseyBeat. Oh yes, so in 1958, when we first got into this building, we full of rusty machinery. And all this, on each floor, by the way, on each floor. And down below here was vats where they used to put the butter to pack it before it was packed. And we had to remove all the machinery out of here and put it on the side of the street here for them to collect it. It took a hell of a long time to do that. But eventually we managed to open it in 1960. So this is where it all happened here, but this is not where the story starts. Off we go. Well, this is number 7, well it was number 17, Slater Art Studios. And I used to have this first floor here as my art studios. This is my office, and I used to sleep in here for 7 years. And one day, about 1956, early 56, I was looking out of this window here, and a TVR, or a Triumph, I think it was a Triumph, blue Triumph, open-topped car drew up with this young fella, big flowing scarf and a big fat cigar, and he parked just down here. And the next thing is he bounded up the stairs were just here, and came into my office. And that was the first time I'd met my business partner, was to be my business partner, Harry Hulme. That was the first meeting we had here. Next time I met Harry Hulme was I was doing the basement out in the Mallorca. This is the time the cabinet opened. So Robertson Island, the owners of the Mallorca, wanted to get in on the jazz scene. So they decided that the basement in the Mallorca would be ideal for them to put jazz on. So they asked me to do the work in the basement, to make it into something looking like a, jazz venue. I was doing the basement out, and in walked Harry Hulme. And I was surprised. He was just as surprised as I was to see him as he was to see me. So he said that, I said, "What are you doing here, Harry?" Something like that. And I'm going to be running the jazz in this basement. You sort of like a person and it just seemed to gel when we first met. And we decided that we could probably do something different. Not better, but different. So we started to seriously look around for some premises. You've got to remember that Harry was well known in the jazz world, in London and Manchester. So he was ideal place to get all these London bands anyway booked into the Mardi Gras. He actually booked Muddy Waters and Little Walter into the Mardi Gras. So he did a lot of good there. By the way, I'm Chesney, going to Hulmeshire, and Hulmeshire's Hadge. And we ceased to be Harry and Jeff. From that day we went into the pub in Lime Street. We came out, Hadge and Chesney. Anyway, we started booking the Temple, the banqueting rooms in the Temple on a Sunday afternoon. And we called it the Liverpool Jazz Club. Rock and roll were coming in, and we decided that we were going to have a go at that. We both liked rock and roll. Not as much as jazz, but we liked rock and roll. The Cavern wouldn't put rock and roll on. In fact, they booked Rory Storm. It wasn't called Rory Storm then, it was probably called, anyway, someone else. And he actually did a rock and roll number on the stage, and they fined him six shillings. They deducted 6 bob, 6 shillings from his money. The music that was around was skiffle, folk and jazz. That's it. No one had heard of rock and roll. No one had heard of that. We just wanted to do something different, and we knew that rock and roll was the thing that we wanted to do. The sound, the excitement. It was different. No trumpets, and it was different. Plus the fact that the kids liked it. It was very, very popular. As I said, there were only about 5 bands going at that time. Teddy Taylor, Rory Storm, Jerry and the Pacemakers, and a couple more. So we'd have been booking them. So that gave us a bit of impetus to start seriously looking around for premises. It had a huge wrought iron door to get in. Must have been about 9 foot high by probably 4 foot wide. It was a huge thing. And on the ground floor there were 2 huge zinc vats. And I presume they used to put the butter in there, and it went into the basement to be packed. I don't know, but there were machinery everywhere, rusty machinery everywhere. There were no toilets in there, only one toilet. So we had to fashion all the ladies and gents' toilets. There were only one supplier. We had to get some builders in to do the specialised stuff, and the firm electricians as well. First night, we booked the Saints Jazz Band from Manchester, and I'd been working there with my brother Jack until very late. We were putting trellis work up in the ceiling with flowers, artificial flowers, right up to the half an hour before we opened. So we had to go away to get changed to come back. And we had a hell of a job trying to get down Temple Street. We had a hell of a job to try and get in. Must have taken us half an hour to get in. So that's an example of how big the crowd was. Well, the police had to come down because nobody could get up and down Temple Street to control the crowd.
Whatever you say or do, I will do.
One Saturday night, I told my mum I was going to my friend's house, and we ventured down to Dale Street and walked. I remember there was the Temple Bar on the corner which played jazz, and we walked down, and it was like a narrow street with warehouses, old warehouses on both sides, and with a slight little kink in the road. And we ventured down the dark, winter's night, cobbles, and I thought we were very brave. I don't think I'd do it now. And to the iron door, but you could hear the music, and as soon as you hear the music, and it's absolutely wonderful. So we go through this door, iron door, as you would, you know, imagine, two bouncers standing outside. And you had to sign in as you went in the doorway, and we weren't members then, but we became members as soon as we possibly could. And then you walked in, and opposite you there were tables, I think, alongside, and in front of you, and there was a coffee bar at the end. And then there were wooden stairs to the right going down. And I remember standing on those stairs, and it was like the black hole of Calcutta. All you could see, it was pitch black, and the music was pounding away. And all you could see was these lit ends of cigarettes, because everybody smoked in those days. And men all wore suits. Jeans were for work, but you know, everybody wore suits. You weren't allowed in by the bouncers if you weren't dressed correctly. And but the music just grabbed us. It was just all consuming, just, you know, took over our lives really.
You know, the sort of, when you came to the place, it had the sort of air of mystery about it, because that big iron door on the front end gave a bit of sort of cachet to the place you went in there, you know. And when you went in, there was all the colours all over the place, the walls and everything. It was really great, and it was a good club to pay play at as well, wasn't it? Yeah. I said they used to give us more money than the other place, didn't they?
The other place.
Yeah.
It was very dark.
Yeah, it was very dark.
And carrying all the gear down those stairs was a nightmare. Very narrow staircase, wasn't it, Sam? And stage was quite small. But we got used to it, and it had a unique atmosphere.
The Iron Door was always my favourite venue.
I always felt safe in the iron door. There was never any arguments or fighting.
I remember it as being friendly place. I like going there, you know.
Stage was only about inches off the floor, so they were virtually facing you. So, you know, if you liked somebody, you could sort of, you know, make it quite clear that you liked them. Not that it would do any good, I don't suppose.
Our band was called the Kansas City Five. Now, there was a famous jazz musician, Count Basie, in America, and he had bands, and they were called the KC7 and KC5.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they thought we were a bit jazzy, so they put us on with the Johnny Dankworths. The Johnny Dankworth septet, there were 7 of them, at the Iron Door. And they were musicians, they were at the top. The drummer was Ronnie Stevens, who was one of my idols. I walked down the stairs with my drums and nearly dropped everything when I saw Ronnie Stevenson sitting there, and he said, "All right, mate." He said, "Don't worry, bringing them." He said, "Use mine." Playing Ronnie Stevenson's drums in the Iron Door. God almighty. But they thought we were a jazz band because we were the Kansas City Five, but they soon found out we weren't.
The smell, the atmosphere, the stirs.
And it was going in and everything, and it was new. You know, it was just the atmosphere, you know.
The musicians loved the Iron Door, all the ones I know.
Yeah,
loved playing there.
Again, it had an atmosphere all of its own anyway, and it was always a pleasure to play there, apart from the stirs.
From a drummer's point of view, it was a drummer's club, really. A lot of places you go to, the drums are just lost, just go. And like St George's Hall, God almighty, like playing in the Mersey Tunnel, and the Irish Centre and places like that. But the Iron Door had this atmosphere, and I loved it. I used to love playing there. We played there a lot, thankfully.
Kenny Ball wrote a hit record in there that was top of the hit parade, and it was Samantha, a song called Samantha. He wrote that in the Iron Door.
This particular day, we had no money, so Joy and I decided we'd walk into town. And so my mum and dad thought I was at her house, and her mum and dad thought she was coming to my house. So we walked she lived in Broad Green, from Broad Green into town. I can still remember walking down, and we'd combed our hair particularly high. I've got to say, we never ever combed the back, only ever the front of our hair. So we walked down Prescott Road, down Prescott Street into town. And when we got there were bouncers on the door, and we stood outside wishing that we could get in, you know, and I think there was a window there from what I can remember, but I just seem to remember standing there and because you could hear the music, you could have had a dance outside in the road. The music was, you know, quite good. And from what I can remember, I can't remember distinctly, but I do think that they were kind enough to let us in towards the end.
I think one of the great things at that particular time was no alcohol. So I think a lot of the energy was quite pure and very vibrant. So it's very exciting times.
It was the best time to be a teenager.
Like my son, when he was 12 years old, he said to me, "Hey Dad, what was it like in the 60s?" And I said, I couldn't even describe what it was like. You had to live it. You literally had to live it to know what it was really like.
My memories of the Iron Door are very happy ones, and mainly because of probably the times that we lived in, the fact that there wasn't any trouble, the fact that I felt safe there. The music was fantastic, completely different to what anybody had ever known.
And the Beatles actually played at the Iron Door before the Cavern.
Now there's two different versions of this. My version is from Teddy Taylor. Teddy Taylor and the Dominoes were playing that night, and the fella who was promoting at Latham Hall was called Brian Kelly. And Brian Kelly had booked Teddy Taylor and this other band called the Silver Beats. They called themselves the Silver Beats. They turned up without the drummer. So Teddy Taylor's drummer stood in for him. That was Teddy Taylor's version. The drummer's version is this. He'd just bought himself a brand new set of drums. He'd never played them before. It was the first time he played them on that night. And the Beatles, the Silver Beats, had asked him if their drummer, the drummer that turned up, gone to him, could use his drum kit. And he said, "No, I've only just bought these. Nobody's going to use these." He said, "But I'll sit in with you." So that's what happened. Now this is important. This is 1960, May 14th. He said that they played about 6 standards, like rock and roll standards, and he said they taught him to play 3 of their own numbers, of their own songs. So they were writing their own songs then, at that time. That's important now. The next day, they played at the Iron Door, which was Sunday the 15th of May, 1960. Sunday the 15th, 1960. And when home shoot, I didn't go down there because I had to work in the bar. Somebody hadn't turned up, so I never went downstairs. But I could hear, the stage was just underneath the bar, so you could hear every word. So apparently they said to him that they didn't want to be called the Silver Beats, they were called the Silver Beatles. Introduces as the Silver Beatles. Now that's the first time they played anywhere in public as the Silver Beatles on the 15th of May, 1960. And they all had leather jackets or leather. George Harrison had a full leather, like like what motorbike riders wear, leather all round. But they sprayed them silver. They sprayed splotches of silver on. He sprayed his all silver. I remember Stuart Sutcliffe. He used to wear a floppy, like a cowboy hat with a big brim on it. And he had his leathers on with his floppy cowboy hat. That's how I remember him, because he looked a bugger in it. Anyway, that was that. They said they weren't. They were going on tour. We often used to have conversations, Lennon and I. We often used to have let's say a discussion about bands and this, that, and the other. So I said, what I favour is some brass in the band, in the group, like a saxophone bloody marvellous. So the next thing is, I think it was another lunchtime. We're always lunchtime. He said, are you coming down to see us? Because I didn't often go down. Very rare. Well, I didn't often go down anyway. He said, are you coming down later? I said, oh, I might try and get down. He said, well, try. So there they were. The next thing he announced the number. I think it was Please Me Do. They hadn't recorded it. It was just one of the first ones they'd written. And the next thing is he pulls this harmonica out of his back pocket and he winks like that and he started to play. That was his idea of the saxophone, the brass. We'd lost the licence. We couldn't trade. We couldn't do any business. All the bills were mounting up. Couldn't pay the bills. So we had to go bankrupt. And that was on the bank. When we went bankrupt, I remember shaking hands with Hulme on the steps outside, and that was the last time I saw him for 40 years. The bailiffs came in, took up everything. Everything. The only thing they didn't take, and they couldn't take it, was the bar. The bar was about 40 foot long and solid mahogany, so they had to leave that. Carpets, they took the furniture, the carpets, the coach lamps around the room, everything. So it was just a bloody shell. We formed a company called, we bought it off the shelf. It was called the First In Hire and Service Catering Company. But in the back of my mind was the Sergeant Webster's last words to me, that if you open up as a club, we'll be back in again. That's why I decided to call it a society. So I called it the Liverpool Jazz Society, thinking, well, it sounds all right, it sounds a bit... And I thought, well, to make it more... I'll get somebody to hire it. I'll get some organisation to hire it, to make it look as though it is a society who's hiring the...
And who did that?
Sam Leach. He didn't know that, but he didn't know that. December 1960, we opened up as the Liverpool Jazz Society, and I've just told you the Spinners and the Confederates. But I decided. Remember, I've been out of it. With it being closed, I've been out of it for a few months, hadn't I? Mm-hmm. So I didn't know what were happening on the scene. So I had to make up that all that time that I've been out, and I also knew that I had the opportunity to put rock and roll on. I knew that, but anyway, Sam used to come in during the daytime. Most weeks he used to come in, and we used to discuss this, that, and the other. And I said, I'm thinking about opening up again and putting all-night sessions on. Not opening up again. I said I was thinking about putting all-night sessions on, because I'd had the experience of putting all-night sessions on. So the next thing is Sam buggered off to the car dome, and he came back about 2 hours later, and he said, let me put the first all-night session on, he said. He said, I've got an idea to put these 12 bands and getting 22 bouncers and all this business. So that's what happened.
First night was incredible, the first all-night session. There's 12 bands on, 12 hours. Starting 8 o'clock at night, going right through to 8 o'clock next day. And we used to put Teddy Taylor on 7 in the morning, so that the people would stay. We never had less than 700 people stay all night, you know, marvellous. We closed up with 1,000 people in by about 8:15. And then the young kids in those days didn't have cars, so they get the early bus home, the last bus. So I'd been selling tickets for the second house. It was like a cinema, 2 houses, and altogether we got 1,800 people in. And I think that's still a record behind though, you know. And the atmosphere was just unbelievable.
It was hot, sweaty, packed, good fun, and my lasting memory was when we were all absolutely knackered in the morning, that King Size Tail and the Dominoes were always last on, and they had had a good night's sleep, and they all came in looking bright and breezy after a good breakfast, and it all started again.
Oh God, the all-night sessions. They were something else. I mean, there wasn't a better gig, there wasn't a better venue for all-night sessions than the Iron Door.
Do you remember Jeff? He never stopped. He never sold many hot dogs. He worked hard all night, Jeff. It was good.
But the thing I liked about the Iron Door is, I think I'm not sure whether they started at 8 in the evening and went through till 8 on the Sunday morning. And I could always remember, I'm not sure whether it was Sammy that actually said to me, or I think it was Sammy that said, I know it's unfair, but we always put you on 7 till 8. And we always will, because you are the only band that can keep the crowd here after 7 o'clock in the morning. And so we used to literally go home. We'd perhaps do 3 or 4 gigs. No, 3 on the night before, and then whiz off about 10 to 7. Straight down the dock road, straight into town, straight on stage, play till 8 o'clock, and go home to bed again. And it was a fabulous atmosphere. And even after these people had been in the club for 12 hours, they were still loving it, you know.
Oh, well, he was very popular. The kids wouldn't have stopped for any of the band. They used to stop for him. There would be about 500 kids, even at 8 o'clock in the morning. 400 or 500, 400 or 500, yeah.
I mean, but they used to queue up, didn't they? Right down the street.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Sammy would say, come back at 12 o'clock when the under-18s have gone home for the last bus.
We'd be double booked. So we'd come and do a session at, say, 7 o'clock at the Iron Door till 7:30, 7:45. Then we'd be away over to Ellesmere Port Civic Hall, or to the Queen's, or to the King's Club in Ellesmere Port, or Little Sutton. And then we'd come back and we'd do a session at the Honour Park Ballroom. So there's 3 gigs straight away. Then we back down, we'd probably go and have some scram at Joe's Cafe, and then back down to the Iron Door and do the 5 to 6 spot in the morning.
Invariably on these all-night sessions, I couldn't move away from the coffee bar because you wouldn't be able to walk from there to there. It'd take you about a bloody hour to walk from there to there if you were lucky. I don't know how they put up with it. The kids just used to sit down and lay down where they were. They couldn't get downstairs to the where the bands were. They could hear them because we put loudspeakers upstairs.
There was lots of people lying around asleep. I remember that. People just used to sleep, didn't they? Especially on the all-night things. They'd just fall asleep wherever they were.
We'd be trying to get the gear out and there'd be bodies lying up the stairs.
One particular morning, Sunday morning, I stepped over this body and somebody looked up at me and said, it's cold in here, isn't it? It was John Lennon, fast asleep with somebody's coat over him.
So this fella, George Williams, who run the Zodiac in Duke Street, came, and I'd known George from when I was in Slater Street in the art studios, and we were going to go round to the Cardoma for a cup of coffee, and these 2 girls came up and said, "How do we get onto the stage to?" You know, what do we have to do? What do you have to see to get on? And luckily Rory Stone was there. And I said, well, see this fella, see Rory. So I said, see Rory. And that's the last time, I don't know what happened in between. I don't know whether she saw Rory or who she saw. But the next time I was coming back down from the Cardoma, and there were a big fan we had installed in the Iron Door in the basement. And that made a hell of a lot of noise. And I could hear this bloody voice coming through, a very strong, savage voice, and it was Cilla Black. Sang Fever. She'd obviously made arrangements to get on the stage with Rory Stone. The next day, she was back again. The Beatles were on that day. It was a 5-hour session. She was back with her mate Pauline, And Pauline had arranged, she was going out with George Harrison at the time, Pauline, and she'd arranged for Cilla. Well, she hadn't arranged, but she'd tentatively asked him. And I was down there, I was there, and the crowd started saying, give Cilla a go, give Cilla a go, give Cilla a go. So John Lennon came to the microphone and he said, come on up, Cyril, he said, and let's see what you can do. Come on, Cyril, get up and let's see what you can do. And then she did. And that's the first time she actually sang with them as well.
What impact did Epstein have on the Liverpool music scene?
Well, he booked them up, but they didn't play in Liverpool once he booked them up. They buggered off to London, didn't he? He took all the business away from Liverpool. All the groups he signed up, they didn't play in Liverpool very much after that. They played all over the place.
So what impact did that have on?
Well, it did. It closed the scene down completely. Within months, short months, there were no groups left. They were sketching around to try and... When I opened the Staircase Club in Lime Street, I couldn't find it. I had to put the Blue Mountain Boys on, which was a bloody country and western group. Because I was sketching around for a bit of a name group to put on.
My view is that MerseyBeat finished in 1962.
Yeah.
You know what they call MerseyBeat? You're obviously too young to have heard these the first time. But all these bands like Jerry and the Pacemen, all great bands, they all started singing pop tunes. Rock and roll hard rock and roll was what MerseyBeat was. And when the Beatles started singing their own, great, Please Me, it had to be a hit, fresh sound. It wasn't rock and roll. It wasn't MerseyBeat. It's nothing to do with MerseyBeat. MerseyBeat was hard American rock and roll. And apart from a few bands like the Remo 4, who were very musical and that, the majority of the bands were just playing rock and roll. And there was a gap between 1960 and 62 when rock and roll virtually finished in the charts, and we had people like Cliffy and all that. And then suddenly the Beatles came on the set, and that was the end of MerseyBeat, in my opinion, because they were doing all these like kiddie songs. How do you do what you do to me? Made millions for them, but it wasn't MerseyBeat.
If you take 1957 to 62, and there's a cake being made, and the ingredients of the cake is the venues, the promoters, and all the bands, and all the revellers. And in 1962, this cake is just sitting there. And Eppie come along and put the icing on the top of it. If there was no cake, he couldn't have done it.
It's just a great club, and there are a lot of good clubs in Liverpool, but the Iron Door stands out as being one of the very best,
It played its part in the evolution of the Mersey sound, there's no doubt about it,
People like Jeff, Brian Kelly, Ralph Webster, and even Brian Epstein in his own little way, they gave us our start. They allowed us to do what we were doing. They said, go for it. You do what you do. And you can't thank people like Jeff enough.
They're like the unsung heroes, Sammy Leach, Geoff Hogarth. They are really unsung heroes of the MerseyBeat era. Without them, the MerseyBeat era literally would not be here.
How's Beatnik? I slept in the club on the floor, our Beatnik. And I liked it, I enjoyed it. And if having time over again, I'd do it again. Oh, yes. I did meet my wife here. She was working in the cloakroom. That would be 1962.
Can you remember the first time you saw her?
Yes. a friend had been up to the cloakroom and said, he came down and said, there's two girls in the cloakroom there drinking gin. Better go up and have a look. So I went upstairs to the cloakroom, and there's Rosemary and her mate drinking gin in the cloakroom. And that was the first time I saw Rosemary. The next time I went up and I tried to have a talk to her, she was hiding behind the coats in the cloakroom and looking around like that and talking to me. And that's, well, that's it. Is that it?